KEX. This is Mark and Dave.
The headline reads, cold medicine prescriptions have not reduced meth lab incidence or use in Oregon. Boy, a lot of us have been inconvenienced because, we don't have Sudafed over the counter anymore, so we just kind of put up with it to go to our doctor to get a prescription for pseudoephedrine. Steve Buckstein joins us from the Cascade Policy Institute, and you're saying meth lab numbers may be down a little bit, but it isn't because we outlawed the stuff.
They're down a lot no matter what, but in every state they're down a lot. You look at the whole country, you look at the West Coast, and we've seen a dramatic decline in meth labs, and the majority of that decline happened before Oregon made pseudoephedrine a prescription drug.
According to the Oregon Narcotics Association website, back in 2003, there were about 473 meth labs, and of last year, there were 9. And it has been a steady decline ever since. Am I reading you right, Steve, that this law requiring prescription and over-the-counter or behind-the-counter wouldn't have made any difference at all?
Well, behind-the-counter apparently made a difference. We made pseudoephedrine a behind-the-counter drug in 2004, I believe. And so then you had close to 500 meth lab incidents in the state. The next year, in 2005, it was down to a little less than 200. And when our prescription law took effect in 2006, it was down to something like 50. So the big decline, 90% of the decline, occurred before our prescription law happened.
If I'm hearing you correctly, then, if we were to go to a simpler program where people could get these with just photo ID, not unlike getting spray paint, we could still reach our goal and people could have a less stuffy nose.
Yes.
Governor's office and Oregon Partnership have told us that that what you said is true, but the real benefit to the state is you don't have children's services involved, dragging kids out of meth houses. Property owners aren't on the hook for contaminated lands. So it's really a win for the state.
Well, no, the behind-the-counter was a win for the state, but not the prescription part. Yes, obviously that was a big part of the problem, but that was dealt with virtually all over the country by simply putting pseudoephedrine behind the counter. There was very little additional benefit to making pseudoephedrine a prescription drug in Oregon, our study finds, and it's at a considerable cost to consumers because, yes, you have to take time off work, you have to spend more for a prescription drug, and if you don't want to go to that hassle, you may stay home from work with a cold, and that hurts, you lose pay, and your employer loses your productivity.
Not to mention the copay when you go to the doctor's office. So
exactly.
you're out of pocket $35 before you even get your hands on.
So there's a significant cost to consumers, and we're just saying we don't think it's worth the cost.
I'll tell you this much, though, Steve. Ever since it went behind the counter, I've had no use for it anyway. I just find some other over-the-counter drugs that will relieve the symptoms, and I'm fine.
And that's fine, but we shouldn't be in the business of taking those choices away from Oregonians.
Do you think there's any likelihood that Oregon and other states in the country will revisit this and go back to just a behind-the-counter approach?
Well, all other states except Mississippi have already stayed with behind-the-counter. Mississippi passed a law similar to Oregon's in 2010. There are several states, I believe, that are looking at a prescription approach now. Oklahoma just voted it down in their legislature yesterday, coincidentally, the day we released our report. So people are continuing to look at this, but our data is pretty clear, and it's all federal data comparing every state, and you just don't see the benefit of making pseudoephedrine a prescription drug.
Steve Buckstein, Cascade Policy Institute. Very interesting. It doesn't bother me because I've found some other over-the-counter stuff that works.
A lot of people have, but I think Steve's point, it's a good one. If you don't need it, if the prescription element's not important, let's go back to just getting it over the counter.
I'll tell you what's freaky though, and twice in my neighborhood in Tigard we had meth house busts. Where,
really?
One time I was driving home, the guys were in the hazmat suits and everything, hauling stuff out of an apartment in our neighborhood. And I thought, wow. I find out later it was a meth bust.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just going, wow. It was across the street from a school, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, well, that's...
So we don't see that a lot, thank goodness.
As much as we used to, yep.
Yeah, hallelujah.